In a story as big as Final Fantasy XIV, there are plenty of memorable moments, and not all of those moments are happy. Here's a list of what I think are the 10 most tragic moments in Final Fantasy XIV. Number 10 is the moment Tesleen dies. When you first get to Norvrant and start to search for the Scions who had been taken to the First, you find Ysayle, who's been on the world for a year. She's been out near the border to the Empty fighting against Sin Eaters to protect the people at the inn at Journey's Head. She's become friends with those people, particularly with a woman named Tesleen, who takes care of the people who have been infected by the Sin Eaters. Unfortunately, not long after you arrive, Tesleen is transformed into a Sin Eater in a very gruesome scene that shows you just how high the stakes are in Shadowbringers. As icing on the cake, you have to kill the woman in the first dungeon, and it only gets worse from here. Number 9 is the moment where Ardbert is forced to stand by and watch his people die. Ardbert and the other warriors of Light of the First accidentally caused the flood that nearly destroyed the world. Then they, along with Moenbryda, gave their souls to stop it, all except for Ardbert, who Moenbryda left behind for her own reasons. He walked the world for 100 years, unable to be seen or touch anything until you arrived. You started to save the First, restoring the night sky by defeating the Light Wardens, and it was going well until Vauthry launched an attack on Lakeland. 2 soldiers are off alone, waiting for you to save them when a Sin Eater attacks. Ardbert tries his hardest to save them, but he phases right through the creature, and all he was able to do was close his eyes and listen to them die while wondering why he was forced to suffer like that after everything he had done to help people. Number 8 is the moment when Lyna's entire squad turns into Sin Eaters and tries to kill her. During the attack on Lakeland that we mentioned earlier, Lyna's entire squad is turned into Sin Eaters. That moment in itself is bad, but it's not all that tragic. What was the woman's response. With everything you had done by taking down the Light Wardens and restoring the night sky to a world that hadn't seen a clear sky in 100 years, the people had started to hope for a better future. And Lyna not only saw that get ripped away from her friends, but they were people who looked to her for leadership and protection, and she had failed them. If this scene hadn't been voiced, it wouldn't have had the same impact, but hearing the actress's voice crack as the hard soldier exterior shattered under a wave of despair was enough to make the loss of hope feel very, very real. Number 7 is the death of Papalymo. After you beat Ylbert, the man reveals that he has both of Nidhogg's eyes, and he uses them in an attempt to summon a being as powerful as Bahamut had been. He summons Shinryu, and since you're all missing out on the much needed prep time that would allow you to deal with the Primal, Papalymo uses the same technique that Louisoix had used on Bahamut to hold Shinryu for long enough for the Scions to come up with a plan to deal with the Primal, permanently. Unfortunately, the spell kills the Lalafell in the process. I liked Papalymo, but I couldn't rank this death higher because you honestly don't spend much time with him in the game. All of the real emotional trauma comes from seeing how Lys deals with the loss, and if you've ever had a friend lose a loved one, then you know that seeing how hard it hits them tends to do a number on you as well. Number 6 is Moenbryda's death. This is one that's similar to Papalymo because you only really have a handful of time spent with Moenbryda, but her death does more to humanize Urianger, who up until you meet Moenbryda, he seems to be nothing more than a funny talking weirdo. Moenbryda shows up to help the Scions with the Ascian problem, but of course the Ascian Nobrialis, also known as Mutton Chops, shows up and seriously injures Moenbryda and captures Moenbryda. You free her, but the Ascians are immortal, so he keeps attacking, but using Tupsamati and Moenbryda's very own life force, you manage to kill the Ascian with White Auracite. While Moenbryda does die from this, which hits Urianger hard, the woman should be credited with giving you the means to put an end to the Ascian threat. Number 5 is the moment that Hraesvelgr reveals to Ysayle that she's not Shiva. This spot was a toss-up between Ysayle's heroic sacrifice and this very moment. And I chose this one because while her body was still alive, this was the moment where Ysayle truly died. From the first time you met and fought her, she believed that she truly was Shiva, the mortal who Hraesvelgr had fallen in love with and consumed so they would never be apart, which is still weird. She dedicated herself to reuniting the people and the dragons, bringing an end to the Dragon Song War after proving that the Ishgardians were actually the bad guys of the story. She traveled with the Warrior of Light, Alphino, and Estinian in an attempt to stop him from murdering dragons and teaching him to understand them because she genuinely believed that she was Shiva. Then she came face to face with Hraesvelgr, who flat out told her that he didn't know what she was, but she wasn't Shiva. Those words crushed her, and she just slumped down staring blankly, lost and confused with her entire reason for being gone, which in truth is a fate far worse than death. Number 4 is the moment when Urianger finally sees Moenbryda's parents. From the moment you came to Sharlayan, it was clear that Urianger was uncomfortable being there, and you find out why the moment Moenbryda's parents catch up to him. Since her death, he's been avoiding them because he blamed himself, and he figured that they'd blame him too. Her mom was extremely mad at him, but not because she blamed him for her daughter's death. She was mad because he spent all of that time mourning her by himself. Finally getting to hear about how long Moenbryda and Urianger had been close, and seeing him mourn the woman he loved really tugs on the heartstrings, because it makes you relive the death of someone that you thought you'd gotten over way back in A Realm Reborn. Number 3 was the moment when you found out that Alfonse had been turned into the diamond weapon. Now, I could have just put the entire Sorrow of Worlded storyline in this spot and called it a day, because every moment in that story was just rough. Seeing each of Gaius' children sacrifice themselves one after the other for the sake of getting the power of the weapon so they could free their homeland from the Empire was something that could be respected, even if you're someone who sees Garleans and automatically thinks that they're evil. But after seeing how Valens treated Gaius' adopted children and how they stayed to keep him from torturing other kids, as well as the whole burn out the bad torture scene, it became pretty clear that this story was not going to end well. But the most horrifying moment came when Allie went to steal the diamond weapon to rescue her last remaining sibling Alfonse, only to discover that the man was far worse than dead. His mind had been merged with the diamond weapon to make a brand new control system called the Overmind. For anyone who missed it, this was a Full Metal Alchemist reference, Alfonse losing his body and having it replaced with a big suit of armor and all of that. It was a terrible moment in Full Metal Alchemist, and it wasn't any better here. And the fact that the revelation caused Allie to go into shock made it all the worse. Number 2 is one that everybody already knew would be on this list: the death of Lord Haurchefant. This is what happens when you spend a lot of time with a character who is genuinely likable. I haven't really met anyone who hates Haurchefant because he didn't give you a reason to. From the minute you first met him out in Kurthus, he was a likable guy, and that grew when he helped the Warrior of Light, Alphinaud, and Tataru escape to Ishgard after the whole Crystal Braves fiasco. He rode in the battle to help you countless times, so the fact that he died saving you from a shot to the back was a moment that affected the Warrior of Light and the player base a lot. That regret carries over into the Dark Knight questline, and even though the Ellison's been dead for years, his dying words of "a smile better suits a hero" still tugs on the heartstrings to this day. Number 1 is a moment that was even more traumatic than the loss of a close friend. It was the moment when you were forced to search for a lost family that nearly ended with a baby transforming into a blasphemy. When the final days fully began, it was total chaos. But true to form, the Scions got to work helping people calm down so they wouldn't turn into monsters, while dealing with the ones who changed. This caused the Warrior of Light, Matsia, and the twins to run around tracking a couple who had a newborn baby. You found the husband moments before he died from his injuries that he took protecting his wife and child, and with a bit more searching, you found a mother running with her baby while a monster was in hot pursuit. The twins attacked it, but Ysayle got swatted away, and the Warrior of Light could only watch in horror as the woman's head was crushed and her corpse, along with the baby in her arms, was thrown into a lake. You pull the baby free only to get surrounded by blasphemies, and you're forced to hand the baby off to Matsia, who tries to carry it to safety while you and the twins deal with the creatures. As he flees, the baby starts to cry and begins to transform too. It was all terrible. But even though the infant survives, having her lose both of her parents in such a gruesome way when the heroes who normally save the day were so close by made this moment take the top spot on this list. So that's my list. What moments tugged on your heartstrings? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit the like button, share the video, and if you want to show your support, you can donate to the channel through the link in the description. Until next time, guys, later.